everyone. Welcome back to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I'm Harvey and she's Kaz, and it's race week. We're heading out to Long Beach for the fifth race of the 2026 IndyCar season. And this really feels like the start of the second leg of the season to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Last week we talked about the rookies and we said, we have the first quarter of the season, so let's evaluate. And then as the week has gone on, I started thinking about everybody that way. We've seen a quarter of the season. We're opening the next chapter, and I think that we really have a great notion of what we both want and expect from everybody. From the first four races, we've got a lot of information to talk about going into it.
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen the field kind of gain some sense of order in terms of where people are falling, though the championship is still wide open, and I think will continue to be right down to the last race of the season. But, we're starting to see the teams really coalesce and find their footing. Penske seems to have found some strength. I think we're curious about McLaren, and we can ask some questions about that, and things will get answered here at Long Beach a little bit. And we also got some insights from Christian Lundgaard this week at his press conference and got to ask him a few questions around that. So it's really interesting to see the season come into focus.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing the most is I'm starting to get specific about what success is going to look like for each team and what they need to improve to put themselves up on that highest level on the top step of the podium. And one person who missed out on the top step in the championship last year by a couple of places, but had a really great season, is Christian Lundgaard. And he is once again chasing a championship. And we got to talk to him this week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. He had held a press conference. IndyCar thankfully makes them available to us, a driver available to us during the week, and this time it was his turn. And it was
good timing, I think, to hear from Christian Lundgaard. By the way, this is kind of when I have questions for him.
Great race last week. He did really well at Long Beach last year, so this feels like a good time to talk to him. And also, it was interesting. I asked him about his position on the team in regard to Pato and the fact that he's ahead of him a few places in the championship right now, and if that changes the dynamic. And he said it really doesn't, but it is interesting to think of him as the
top scoring driver at McLaren.
Top driver for this team. I mean, no question, Pato's the most popular driver, right? He's the only guy in the paddock with his own merch, trailer.
I've said it a million times. Pato's the rock star. He always will be. No way is. I love Christian Lundgaard, but he's not like persona wise that guy. He's not going to take that role from Pato, and he doesn't want to. No. He's not interested. But yeah, points wise, when you think about who's McLaren's lead driver, it feels almost insane to say anybody but Pato O'Ward. But Christian's sitting right up there, and you're right. The last two races looked really nice. McLaren's one of those teams that I think really needs to improve a lot of execution in small places, but race pace and driver capability has been very, very strong out of that car in particular this year.
Yeah, when we asked him about where he said, "Look, I feel like we're right there with Alex and with Kyle, and there are just some little things we need to do to catch up." And I asked him, I said, "Okay, where are you lacking performance to them?" And he said, "In qualifying."
That for him is so correct. Yeah.
And when you look at it, I mean, this year he's qualified 10th, 18th, 17th, and 14th.
Wow.
That puts you at a huge disadvantage in these races, and you can only go so far up, right? Especially on a street or a road course. And on ovals, there's a lot more opportunity.
Well, and in particular, also on a consistent basis. Right. Certainly a great driver like Christian Lundgaard is going to be able to go from 14th to first sometimes. But he's not going to do it every time he starts 14th. You're much more frequently going to gain 3 to 5 positions as opposed to 14. So qualifying better than that for him he needs consistency in his qualifying.
Yeah, and he really felt like, again, last week or 2 weeks ago at Barber, he had what it took to get Alex, and they
I think
talked
he
about
did
that.
too. I can't look at what happened 2 weeks ago and say no, Christian wasn't going to do it. I really very much thought he was up until
Yeah,
pit
that
box error.
well, and he talked about that. The question was asked about how do you deal with that as a team, and he said, "Look, I put it in the wall at Long Beach last year and put us behind the eight ball, and so we all make mistakes occasionally, and it's up to us to pick each other up." And so, they went back and they looked at it and they said, "Okay, here's literally what he said is just take a beat. Make sure everything's settled before we drop the car, because the minute we drop the car, it's a huge issue, right?" So, they're consciously now going into this race thinking, half a second is not going to make or break a pit stop. 10 seconds will.
Yeah. No, I like that attitude. I've always liked the way Christian Lundgaard approaches races mentally. He really seems like a guy who's got his head on his shoulders and doesn't let the emotion of the moment overwhelm him. I think that's part of why he's been so successful, is he's able to be so cerebral and thoughtful about the way he's racing. So I'm glad he's passing that on to his team and bringing that with him in that way.
Yeah, and I think last year's Long Beach is a great example of that. He goes and he sticks it in the wall, has to start from the back of the field. They work together as a team, and they end up in third place, which was a great finish for them.
That's a fantastic result.
So it really seems like they have the right attitude. They don't have a lot of momentum other than with him. I feel like Pato still just hasn't really hit his stride. So I'm going to be really interested to see him this week.
Yeah, I'm looking for Pato too. And I can't help but remember that we kind of saw a bit of this from him last year. It was a quiet start to the season. He really didn't start having, yeah, he had that incredible back half that he said might have won him a championship any other year. And I agree, it very well might have. But this is unfortunate because I don't have data here. This is a feeling. I don't feel like I'm seeing Pato fight for positions. And that's different from the struggles that Christian is having. Christian seems like he's struggling in qualifying. And then there are some slip up mistakes. Pato, I'm seeing give up positions that I think he's capable of fighting for harder. And where's Pato?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to really start watching him carefully as the season moves forward. He's in sixth place in the championship right now.
Hmm.
And, he's a better driver than that.
Yeah.
And he's on a better team than that.
Yeah.
So I want to see, while he was consistent up until Barber, top five, all that, it never felt like he was fighting for a win or fighting,
Yeah.
for that top step of the podium. So let's see how he does. Obviously, he's a great driver. He's a race winning driver. He's a championship contender, and I don't think he's lost it or anything by
No,
any
I don't
stretch
think
of the
so either. I
imagination.
just I just wonder. I feel like I'm seeing him drive differently. I know he's got it in him. He's capable of anything he wants. So bring it
Well,
back to us, my
yeah,
friend,
and
please.
yeah, and that's the interesting thing about this season. One of the things Christian talked about was consistency is important, but you're going to have to win a few races to win this championship,
Certainly.
because Kirkwood's has already won, right?
Mhm.
Alex is going to win his share of races. So
Already has two. Yep.
you're not going to finish top five. If you finish top five every race, you're still not going to win the championship if you don't win a couple of races.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out and how we see drivers start to push now, because, you got those Penske drivers and they all feel like they're in position to win a championship. You got Will Power at Andretti. He thinks he has a championship car now. So I think, this is really going to be an exciting part of the season where they all start to put themselves into position position for a championship because, you've got Long Beach here, then you've got Sancio, then you've got the Indy 500, which comes with a big points bonus as
Absolutely.
well.
Many extra points to be scored at Indy. It's
So
not just important for the spectacle.
right. So I think it's going to be we're really coming into the point of the season now where no more excuses. Everybody's had enough track time. The teams have all started working together. Your pit crews should all be aligned. That stuff should be moving smoothly. Now it's fight for it on the in qualifying and on the track. And this is a great place for that to happen because this track is special.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you've been to this track before.
I
You have a
have.
bit of a history with this track.
I have, back in the 80s, as a young man, I was a creative director for motorsports advertising at Chevrolet, and I had to go to a bunch of races to do my job. And
Oh, wow. How did you ever manage?
yeah, and Long Beach was the first race of the IndyCar season back then, and so it was the first place we could go and capture video, back then film, and
Mhm.
pictures of cars on track. So I went with a bunch of videographers and cinematographers and photographers, and we shot all the footage we needed of all the Chevy powered cars at the time. And this was when Chevy was just getting back in, or not getting back into getting into IndyCar racing. They weren't in it before this. They developed the engine with Ilmor, and it was a big push for Chevrolet to try to raise their profile in the United States for performance. And I don't know how many Camaros it helped sell, but we certainly tried to make that happen for
At
sure.
least a couple,
Yeah.
at least
So
one
I
or
got to
two.
I got to go there in '85 and watch Mario win the race. He ran away with that first IndyCar race, and if people don't know this, there's a big history before that. The first race was in 1975 at Long Beach, and that was a Formula 5000 race. And if you don't know anything about Formula 5000, look it up. It's a really cool series. It was basically an alternative to Formula One that was going to be less expensive and more accessible. And it was these, beautiful Formula cars, open wheel racers that had 5-liter V8 engines in them. And if you see them at a vintage race, you just feel them pounding in your chest. These engines are so raw, and it was great. And that race was won by Brian Redman, I think, the first race, and it was so successful that Formula One said, "Hey, we
Hey, we
want to
want
come
that track.
here and run the U.S. Grand Prix West there because they were running the East Grand Prix at Watkins Glen. So they
Gotcha.
said, sure, let's switch it over to an F1 race. Then from 76 to 84, it was a Formula One race. But at that point, Formula One, they, as they always seem to do, got really full of themselves and started charging huge fees for,
Mm.
the right to host an event for them and laying all kinds of other requirements
Forcing
on the,
bars and restaurants to board up their windows so
yeah,
that people can't see. Ugh,
maybe not quite then at that point, but it would have been prohibitively expensive for the Long Beach Grand Prix organizing committee to afford Formula One. So they reached out to IndyCar and said, "Hey, let's turn this into an IndyCar race," crossing their fingers and hoping that it would continue to have that same sort of cachet. Well, it didn't hurt that Mario Andretti won the first race because this is the other Mario Andretti won the second Formula One race there.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and that was huge because he was the first American to win a Formula One race on American soil.
I did not know that.
So there's all kinds of, so by him winning that early race and the IndyCar, it brought a lot of credibility to it to
Sure.
race fans again. So there was this just there's a really nice history at the track. IndyCar's been there. Both it started as a kart, championship auto racing team. Then when the split happened, Indy Racing League took over the venue. And then when they came back together, now IndyCar has been there and they've raced there every year except 2020 when obviously COVID caused a lot of events to be canceled.
Sure. Yeah, we
So,
can't look at that year.
Yeah, yeah. And the track has changed a little over the years. I think it's had four or five configurations, but a couple things have not changed. There's that tight hairpin, turn 11, which is the slowest turn on the IndyCar calendar. The cars will be going about 31 miles an hour through there.
Whoa.
So they're still speeding, but on city streets, but barely. But 31 miles an hour, they come out of that, and then they have to get that power down that long kind of bending front straight, right on the waterfront there, and into turn two, which is that's where you're going to see most of the passing and most of the action in the race, because it leads into that tight section that goes around the fountain where it really is single file, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
So you got to, that's where you're going to look for a lot of action. It's also a place because it's at the end of this, the start straight where if you've got cars two or three abreast, people have to be really mindful going into turn two and three and play nice. Otherwise, that's a place where on the start you could see some shenanigans.
And speaking of shenanigans, last year this race was it had no cautions
Right. Yeah.
and turned it into purely a pit stop strategy race.
Yeah, and we saw a ton of different strategies. And the interesting thing is last year they only had to run the alternate tires once.
Hmm.
This year they have to run the alternate tires twice.
I'm so glad.
It's going, I mean, first of all, it at 90 laps and your pit window is right around 30 laps for
Hmm.
fuel on this track. That means maybe you could stretch it to a two stopper, but with the two requirements to put alternates on twice, no way. This is going to be a three stop race easily, and you're going to see a bunch of different strategies. Last year, Joseph Newgarden threw off the alternates after just two laps and then ran three sets of primaries after that. And then some people ran one set of alternates or started on the hard, the prime tire, went to the alternates. And what they would do is, this is really smart, is they put on the alternates expecting to run 10, 15 laps. They fueled for 10 to 15 laps. So they could have a lighter car, better handling car, then came
Sure.
in full fuel on the primary tires and ran the rest of the way as primaries. So a lot of really smart strategies that played out throughout the race. And then you saw Stingray Robb run a third strategy that got him into the top 10. So there I would expect to see even more different looks at this year since everyone has to run the alternates twice.
With two sets of the alternates required, there are so many different ways that, because ultimately what we have to think about here is how to mitigate the bad effect of those alternate tires. And
Right.
there are so many different ways teams can choose to do it. And and then all careful planning goes out the window when somebody hits the wall at turn two.
Right.
So, or a lovely opportunity presents itself to a team that maybe didn't choose the right strategy from the start. So there's a lot of fun to be had tracking tires this weekend. This is a situation where I definitely recommend fans watching on TV also have the leaderboard open on your phone or your computer in front of you, so that IndyCar always does provide a whole lot more running data online than you can see during the broadcast.
Yeah.
I would open that up. That
If
information, who's on what tire and when they last pit, is going to be vital this week.
if you haven't downloaded the IndyCar app, do so. It's a
Go to do
really
it.
great app for anybody who's following this. The other thing that's happening this weekend at this race is we're going back to the street qualifying format that was used in Arlington
With a
with a
little tweak.
modification. Yes.
And it's
The
not the modification that I have been suggesting. And I like it though. I like it a
yeah.
lot.
Well, what happens is who in the Fast 12, right? If you make it out of your group into the Fast 12, now you're running for the Fast Six. And in Arlington, what happened was the fastest person in the Fast Six got to go last, which is typically going to be the fastest position in qualifying. Well, that didn't happen in Arlington because tires got cold and all of that stuff while they were waiting to go. So and you don't have enough time to really light the tires back up with just
Hmm.
a half a lap before you get to the alternate start finish line. So what
Hmm.
they're doing is coming out of the Fast 12, the fastest car gets to pick what position they want to go in the Fast Six. So if, Kyle Kirkwood has the fastest time in the Fast 12, he can say, you know what, I want to go first, or I want to go third, or
Yep.
whatever, right? He gets to pick, and then the second car gets to pick, and so on. So you're going to have these guys going for it even more in the Fast 12,
Yep.
right?
You're not just looking to, let's say you put in a time that you know is not your best, but you're very confident it will qualify you in the top six. That's not enough anymore. Now you really want to be able to make that choice. And I really like this completely eliminates any argument about fairness. Because
Mhm.
hey, you did the best and you got to pick. And if you picked wrong, and as we're still working out this new format, everybody was surprised in Arlington when the first position wound up being the strongest position.
Right.
Drivers after qualifiers commented that they didn't expect that until it started happening, and then it was very clear to see. We don't know if that's going to be consistent for every race or if that had to do with the conditions in Arlington more than anything. So we might potentially see the person who finished first in the top 12 choose to go first in the Fast Six, and the person who finished second choose to go last.
Right.
And that's really fun.
Yeah, there's going to be all kinds. The other thing it'll do too is, you only get 5 sets of alternates for the weekend.
Hmm.
And so what you may see happen is someone run an extra set of alternates in the Fast 12 to try and
Yep.
get into a higher position in the Fast Six, and then they'll be left with one new sticker set of alternates and one used set of alternates. Now, if you do that and you go into the race, what you're going to do is you're going to run a minimum on those alternates. You're going to run 2 laps, come back in, swap them out, and go again.
Hmm.
So, there's going to be all kinds of different strategies to play depending on how that qualifying goes.
I like this modification to the format so much. I initially liked it. I thought it was a better viewing experience, but I thought that there had to be a way to handle the fact that there's an obvious advantage to timing and positioning here. And I think this does such a great job solving it. And it puts it on the drivers and the teams to make another smart decision. This is another place where a team looking to challenge Alex Palou in the 10 car can either show that they do have the ability to strategize a race that way, or an opportunity for them to give up a couple more points to the champion.
Yeah. So that's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a full weekend. With a West Coast race for those of us in the Central and Eastern time zones. It's an evening race for us. Actually, practice one starts at 6 o'clock on Friday Eastern time.
I'm
Practice
looking forward
two,
to an evening race. I
yeah,
know it'll look like daytime on the television, but outside my windows, it'll be twilight, and I'm looking forward to that.
right. Practice two is at 1:30 on Saturday. Qualifying 6:30 Eastern time on Saturday, 5:30 Central time for me. So, I'll get all my work done in the day and not have it interrupted. That'll be kind of fun. And then the race is 5:30 on Sunday on Fox. So that'll be fun to have a almost an evening race for those of us on the eastern side of the U.S.
Yeah, enjoy our Sunday in the sun and probably do some yard work and then head inside and have a great race to watch. You guys, thank you so much for catching up with us. We will be back throughout the week after qualifying and, of course, the race itself. And then starting after this week, we get to begin our Indy 500 coverage in earnest. So definitely keep your eyes out for more stuff coming from us. We want to show you every little piece we can about the greatest spectacle in racing. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I am Kaz Briggs, and I'm here with my father, Harvey. Find us on social media at Harvey_drives or Fast Car Kaz, or of course, just Rides and Drives Team Radio on all of the social medias. Click the like button, click follow, and more than anything, send us a comment. We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, make sure to check out ridesanddrives.com for more IndyCar coverage. We're continuing to put more content on the site and would love to have you come there and visit. Also, let us know if there's anything you'd like us to write about on, and we can put that content up on the site as well. So with that, we'll say goodbye. We'll see you on Saturday after qualifying.
Drive safe, everybody.